At their core, the Gene Keys teachings are designed to put us in contact with grace. There are two forces that we work with in the Gene Keys. One is the frequency of evolution, and that is your growth. That is working with your profile and being better able to understand your shadow frequencies and use them, transmute them into the gift, into service of the whole. But there's a counter force that's happening, which is the force of involution. And that's the force of grace reaching down into your life and providing you with opportunities to feel at home, to feel safe, to feel love. And the Gene Keys wisdom and contemplation get us in contact with that divine grace. What I mean by that is you have these moments of just pure love and pure joy, and oftentimes they come with tears and just this sense of awe at the world and this knowing that everything is going to be okay. And I've been experiencing these moments more and more and more as I engage with the Gene Keys. And part of coming into contact with that grace is understanding the story that underlies the Gene Keys. A lot of times people tend to get hyper focused on their profile, especially in the beginning, and that's okay. That's part of the process. Those are steps along the path. But ultimately we have to remember this isn't about us. The Gene Keys, in fact, are here to dissolve us so that we can come into contact with that spirit of grace and allow it to roll through us, to come through us. We fall into the flow of life by staying in our gift, by not fighting against things, by not having expectations, by not needing things to go our way, but instead trusting in this greater force. And one of the things that helped me to trust that force is the Gene Keys mythology, the esoteric teachings. And so I want to take you back billions of years when there was nothing. Before the universe began, everything that we know, everything that we see, all the gases, all the forces, all the souls, everything was nothing. And from that nothing exploded into everything. And the laws of our universe as we know them gradually came into being. And over time, along with those forces like gravity, things started to come together. Things started to show up, things like galaxies and black holes, and eventually our sun was born. And then our solar system was born. And from there, we began to have life. We began to have Gaia, the spirit of the earth, our oneness, and the gases that we breathe and that the plants take in, and the molten rock that eventually formed into something that we can stand on and that we can engage in the world on. And then there came life. There came amoebas and plants and bugs and dinosaurs and birds and monkeys and humans. And we continue to grow, we continue to evolve, we continue to discover new life forms. But the humans that came originally are not the same race as humans that are here now. And I don't mean race as we think about it today. I don't mean the color of your skin. I mean almost like a different species of human. And there was a time before the fall, a time when we still remembered what we really are, that we still remembered our unity. We still remembered that we are a slice of God. And at that time, we were able to connect to this energy. We were able to connect to this spirit of divine grace. We were able to connect with one another. And we were able to use energy and use vibration and use sound in order to do things in the world. There was this whole other dimension and this whole other way of communication that we were in touch with. And then there was a fall. And a lot of times that old race is called the Atlantean race, after Atlantis. And I'm not sure that I believe in the gold city underwater, but I do believe that there was another civilization, another form of human. It comes up in our myths over and over and over again. The Great Flood, Noah's flood. In almost every culture around the world, there was this thing that happened, this cataclysm that knocked out everything that we had, and we had to start over again. And that catastrophe reset civilization. It reset everything. And when we started again, we started in a totally new way, in a totally new path, and we were closed off to that original energy, that divine force that allowed us to originally grow. And I don't know why that fall happened, but I can tell you that it was part of the plan all along. Something came up and we needed to start again. And the Babylonians told us that Marduk and Tiamat created this new world. But there are lots of different creation myths that start the world as we know it now. The Bible talks about Noah's story and the Tower of Babel and beginning to repopulate the earth. And the gene keys remind us that we have access to all of this ancient memory, all of this ancient wisdom and knowing through the junk DNA that we have in our body. Our DNA, over 90% of it, scientists think is what's called junk DNA, meaning it serves no purpose. But in the gene keys, we believe that that 90% of our DNA is our collective past. And it tells us and gives us access to all of those things that Atlantean race of people had. And it gives us access to the Akashic record and to any bit of information that we could possibly want to know. And the gene keys give us a tool to help us climb to a frequency at which we can remember. The gene keys allow us to spiral upward in our evolution and to get us to a place where we give grace the opportunity to spiral downward to meet us so that it can add fuel to the fire and pull us up even faster. And when you remember where you came from, when you remember what you are in that moment, your gene keys are no longer your gene keys. And that's why Richard Rudd talks about this secret self-destruct mechanism in the gene keys and in your gene keys profile. That's why I often say that it's not about the profile. Because when you remember, your gene keys don't belong to you, they belong to the collective. They belong to the world because there is no more you. There is only you as you interact with your soul, with the world. And you remember that your soul is my soul. And your gene keys are used to clear the collective suffering that we've accumulated from the time before the fall, to the fall, and after the fall. We turn into a vessel for healing. We turn into a vessel for love. And it's our responsibility, a beautiful responsibility, but a responsibility nonetheless, to transmute that suffering and to gradually start to raise the frequency of the collective so that we can march back towards unity, towards remembering. And it's going to be in a different way. We don't ever go backwards. So we're not going back to the Atlantean type of person. There's going to be a new person that shows up, a new being. And Richard Rudd calls this the Homo Sanctus, the spiritual human. And one thing that might be helpful to know about is how the gene keys view reincarnation or incarnation. And basically the belief is that each time you come to this planet, you purify your soul just a little bit more. And counter to that, you are also taking actions that cause suffering in the world. The good news is that when you die, all the good that you did, all the positive energy, the light that you put into the world comes in and furthers refines your soul to bring your individual slice of the divine back into communion with everything else. The part of you that created suffering, that part gets kicked back into the collective, which is then transmuted through our DNA. And it lives in that junk DNA. And oftentimes we live in fear of being overwhelmed by that vast darkness, that deep suffering. We have done so many atrocities on this world as humans, and we can all feel that so deeply in our being, and we're worried that our heart is not going to be able to handle it. We're worried that we can't deal with the suffering that is our responsibility. And the gene keys give us a tool to walk towards that suffering, to lean into it, and to continue to let it in, because it is a choice. The choice is, do I close down? Do I try and fight everything and do this on my own? Or do I let it into my heart so deeply that in a flash, your heart opens so wide and the suffering comes in so deeply that it turns into bliss? And that can be hard for some people to hear. What do you mean suffering can be bliss? But every teacher along the way, from Christ to Buddha, has told us that when you get to a certain point in your evolution, you know what that suffering means. You know what is happening every time you suffer. And already the time has come that the boulder is rolling down the hill. Already we're gaining momentum, and that's why our world feels so out of control right now. Everything is shifting as we enter the next phase of our evolution. And with that shift comes an end to the old ways of being. And the old ways of being don't like to let go. And that's why all of this is happening around the world. The wars that are happening, the stuff that's happening in politics, the divisiveness that's happening among people, things are starting to break down. And it makes people feel unsafe and unsure what to do, and it kicks up the shadow in people. But counter to that, there's this other group of people that are feeling just this strong, strong call and desire to the spiritual world, to the spiritual realm. And it's our role and our responsibility to help everyone see that there is a different way. And the way that you do that is to do your own personal work and to show up in the world in a way that brings light, that allows your radiance to shine through and your aura to interact with other people in a way that unlocks them and shows people that there is a different path and they can operate in a different way. As the old way tries to tighten its grip, things are going to feel like they're getting even closer to a boiling point. But know that the Spirit of grace is working beneath all of those things. The Spirit of grace has a plan and has had a plan all along. And I'm not saying that that doesn't mean there isn't going to be more suffering. I am saying on the other side of that suffering is something so beautiful that it doesn't even have words. You can't even imagine what's there. And our job is not to punish the people that can't see that future. Our job is never to judge. There's only one thing, one force in this world that can give judgment, and that is the force of God. And that ties intimately to the 60th gene key. Your role is not to pass judgment. Your role is not to drive cause and effect. This person did something to me, so I'm going to do something to them. Your role is to open your heart and offer unconditional love. The universe will redress the balance. The universe will always find justice. Your job isn't even to try and convince them to let go of the old ways, because you can't tell somebody something that they're not ready to hear. All you have to do is stay true to your heart. You have to shine the light of love upon them so that they can see for themselves that there is nothing to fear. And as more and more people gradually let go of that fear, the collective frequency begins to rise. And where we are going, there is no more war. There is no more suffering. There is no more shadow. We're coming to a place where everything is transparent. We will be able to see to the core of people. We'll be able to know people's intentions that underlie their actions. And when you can see that, there's no more lying. There's no more hiding. And in that process, we gradually begin to clean our collective karma, and we come back into unity with one another. The ending is a trip back to the beginning. Everything becomes one, and the story begins again. I hope that hearing that and knowing that story brings you some peace and allows you to settle more deeply into your being and to trust in the flow of what's happening. That's the only way that you can step up and do your part. It requires faith and trust in that story. As you continue to do your work, I want to invite you to a place of connection with myself and with the community. I want you to bring questions around your purpose and your life's work. I want you to bring questions around your relationship and around your work life and finding abundance and prosperity. We're all studying the gene keys, not so that we can be masters of the gene keys, but so we can live our lives in a way that brings change to the world and raises the frequency of everyone around us. And my wisdom calls, our wisdom calls, are an opportunity to engage with other people that are along the journey and to share wisdom and to ask questions. And I hope that you join me at our next one. It's August 6th at noon. And I'll put the registration link in the description, and it's also on the community tab. And hopefully I will see you there. Thank you so much. Until next time.